Hey, everybody. I'm Chuggy. This is Jason. This is our buddy Teaser, who was barking a lot this weekend. We're at the STN Mobile Studio at Sunset Station for the Sports Bookmaking Podcast Bookend. So it's good to be back, Jay. It was a fun week last weekend. There was a lot of underdogs that were barking on Sunday. I mean, you got some big upsets there with the Jags beating the Bills, the Broncos beating the Cowboys, the Giants, who did beat the Raiders, and then on Sunday Night Football, the Titans without Derrick Henry, they beat the Rams. So overall, those dogs were barking this weekend.
It was a good Saturday as well. So on top of having a solid Sunday for the books, it was a great Saturday with some underdogs in college football. We talked about that round robin at the top of the college football, in particular with Michigan State.
Right.
Big upset, not a huge upset, but again a big loss for them, sitting in that position to make the playoff, and Purdue able to knock them off. So we'll see if what happens to the books this week. It's been a really great week, especially with the tip off of college basketball. We saw 70 games on Tuesday.
Actually, if you added all the extra games, and there was over 100
games.
Tuesday, so it was a huge slate.
So we head into this weekend, and as we sit here on Veterans Day, thank you all the veterans out there, and let's jump into kind of this week's game. As I talked about last week specifically, though, some of the underdogs, and getting we talked about the week before of the New York teams. A good week for the books starts with the Jets, and we were praying that maybe Houston, Jacksonville, or Detroit could get us a win. And obviously the Lions were in their bye week, and Houston went and lost to Miami. But the Jaguars, probably the most unexpected team to get the win, was able to pull out the big win as they went up to as much as a 16-point underdog last week against the Bills, and so that was a monster win for us. And then you talk about Denver upsetting Dallas as well, and that was Dallas's first against the spread loss.
Right.
So again, a great week for the book, but I know the people are ready to put their bets this week, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I think last week I said there was a kind of a dirty 4-letter word for the bettors that really came back to haunt them, and that was JETS. And this week it was another 4-letter word, and it was JAGS, and that was Jags winning outright. So it's uncharacteristic to see that happen, but it did. We're going to jump into some college football right now and kind of look at the top 10. There's a lot of big favorites on the board. There's still a lot of shuffling of the deck. We saw a couple teams drop out. We saw some teams drop down. I mean, Georgia, the number one team in the country, almost a 3-touchdown favorite at Tennessee. Bama, I think maybe the largest favorite we've seen this year, 51-point favorites at home against New Mexico State. I kind of feel for those Aggies, except their one loss came against
the Aggies.
The Aggies.
Yeah, no, we if you have anything that you may want to like the New Mexico State, it's that maybe Alabama struggles against the Aggies.
I don't think you can talk me into taking New Mexico State in this one, at least not on the money line. But Oregon, who's number 3 right now, they've got that win against Ohio State. They've struggled a little bit. They're 14-point favorites against Washington State. Ohio State, 20-point favorites against Purdue. And then Cincinnati, a team that hasn't looked great the last 3 weeks, has won their games. They're still number 5. They're big favorites against South Florida, over 3-score favorites. But are they going to ever get the chance to maybe pole vault up? I know we talked about the round robin format, and could some of these teams above them get beat up each other and help Cincinnati? But
just the fact that they're still sitting at 5 bodes well for them. And South Florida has been a great team against the spread. They've been getting blown out in a lot of games and find a way to do a backdoor cover. So South Florida has been really, really good against the spread. But again, Cincinnati at some point in time, things hopefully will click for them, and they will put a game where they put some big points up, hopefully to get the pollsters to
they're
boost
still
them
winning.
Up in these rankings.
They're still winning. They're still undefeated, which is great. Right, they're just not burying those teams.
They've got SMU, I think, on deck here, so that's a big matchup against a good quality team. And when we talk about potential upsets in the top 5, obviously Oregon's a 2-touchdown favorite. You got Ohio State and Georgia, both kind of 3-touchdown favorites. Purdue's been a mighty killer. They've knocked
at home
Iowa and Michigan State this week. Washington State's put some big games together. Oregon has had those squeaky wins where they pulled out wins over Cal and UCLA, and but the Washington State's got to travel up to Oregon for that game, so it makes it a little bit tougher. But they're the shortest of the favorites in the top 5, and then as we go 6 through 10. These teams are kind of on the outskirts looking in.
Right.
In particular, Michigan State.
But still in play for a really good bowl game.
Absolutely. And again, Michigan is sitting at 6. They've got to play Ohio State. So a win here, they go to Penn State. Line's been all over the place. Penn State's actually been the favorite. It's come back to Michigan being a short favorite. So a great game sitting in the 6 hole. Michigan State drops down to 7 at playing at home against Maryland, almost a 2-touchdown favorite.
Right.
Going to be tough for them to kind of make headway to find themselves back into that top 4 into the playoff. And this is the most interesting for me is Oklahoma sitting at the 8th spot. Again, undefeated. They've still got Baylor and Oklahoma State on deck, so two teams that are both.
Can't you make a case, though, that they should be higher up right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, again, what happened to them with Spencer Rattler going to Williams, the change there. The defense has not been good, but they've been playing much better of late. They've actually knocked Baylor off the last 7 times these teams have played. I think the last time Baylor beat them was back in November of 2014. This was a game that I had circled on my schedule because I was looking for Baylor. This would be a big spot for them. They're 5-0 playing in Waco. This would be
a win for Oklahoma that will get them, I think, up.
Yeah,
at least 2 or 3
it's a
spots.
leapfrog, and then they play Oak State, who's sitting as the 10th ranked team right now. But Baylor had a terrible loss last week to TCU. Had just fired their coach.
Right.
So it was that classic look ahead. Baylor goes on the road to TCU. They give up. I want to say they gave up 468 passing yards and over 570 total yards to TCU. So really had probably their worst game of the season. But again, like I said, they're 5-0 in Waco. This was a game that they had circled on their calendar. So much like we were talking about Purdue last week with the ability to go knock off a giant Michigan State, this is Baylor's big game right here against Oklahoma.
I think it rounds off then with number 9 at Notre Dame, who still is, you can make a case that Notre Dame could be a little bit higher too. Notre Dame's at number 9. They're at home against TCU.
No, Notre Dame at home against Virginia. The big thing in this game to look for is Brennan Armstrong. Quarterback for Virginia. They've had their bye week last week. They went on the road to BYU in a total slugfest where the teams went up and down the field at each other, and I think they were playing defense with 9 guys apiece the way that game was scoring. So, but make sure Brennan Armstrong, if you're interested in Virginia, make sure Armstrong's going to be a go in this game because Virginia's going to have to score to keep up with Notre Dame.
Right. Yeah, I got a little ahead of myself. Number 10, Oklahoma State, they play TCU this week, and they're almost a 2-touchdown favorite.
Yeah, again, big, huge monster win for TCU, but again, going on the road here to Oklahoma State, who's still sitting in this 10 spot and's got a chance to make some big moves with the fact that they can win here and then go beat Oklahoma. Going to be tough to keep them out of that conversation if stuff kind of shakes out at the top.
It's really getting fun, though, at this time of year, as you kind of alluded to earlier, that all these teams are kind of playing each other. Teams can kind of move up and down. Interesting to see how the committee sees some of these games. But I think, that Oklahoma game against Baylor is huge for Oklahoma. I think a win here is going to catapult them over a few teams, maybe even Cincinnati, just based on strength of schedule. But we're on college football, though. We put up a really cool kind of fun prop this week. We did it last year. It's the Mac Salami. And for you guys that don't know what that is, Jay, I'll let you kind of explain it.
Yeah, and again, we have a lot of fun with the MAC football. And again, because this time of year, they get televised on ESPN, ESPN2 on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. So we get to watch Maction on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. And you've played the NHL salami or baseball salami as total runs scored by all the games being played on that day. So last year, we came up with the MAC salami and the total amount of points that are going to be scored in all the MAC games. And so we had 6 games this week between Tuesday and Wednesday, and the MAC is also a very, very high scoring conference, so a lot of points normally scored in these games. But for the 6 games, we put up a total of 375.5, and
wow!
Of course, the MAC doesn't disappoint in lighting up the scoreboard, and they put up 417 points in the 6 games this week. And so we know that prop is exclusive to us. I don't think you're going to find that prop anywhere else. So when you're looking at your college football for Tuesday and Wednesday, and you see that MAC salami, go ahead and give it a shot, and it'll give you action on throughout the game. And I think next week they play 5 games. I think they have 3 on Tuesday and 2 on Wednesday. So somebody must be in a bye week or playing something later. But look for your MAC salami next week on the Tuesday and Wednesday.
I know in baseball and hockey we had salami. Maybe with all that scoring we should call it mac and cheese. With all the scoring that's going on. But just to kind of finish up college football, last man standing. It was $100,000 guaranteed, and ding ding, we have a winner. There were 6 contestants left going into last week. 1 survived. He had a little over a 16% chance to win. Kind of uncharacteristic that with the 6, only 1 would be left. Usually we get down to like kind of 2 or 3, and but 1's left. He's the winner. He was a Red Rock guest. $100,000. So congratulations on winning the college football last man standing.
Yeah, he won it with Oregon playing Washington. That was his selection. Yeah. And interestingly enough, we had 6 in college football going into last week, and we had 20 in pro football, and we got down to 6. So with all those upsets in pro football, we're down to 6. So we weren't expecting a college football winner last week with 6 contestants remaining, and I'm not expecting a pro football winner this week with 6 contestants remaining. But maybe the craziness ensues, and we find our way to award $150,000
we had
pro
20 left last week in pros, and there was just a lot with all those upsets that we kind of talked about earlier. So many guests got knocked out. So
I know a lot of knockouts were on the Raiders. There were a lot of guests that had the Raiders minus the 2.5 at the Giants. That seemed to be a popular selection. So,
and Cowboys and Bills too. Both of those two teams, even though they were big favorites, they were kind of popular bets as well. We're going to come back and kind of dive into a little bit of hockey and basketball and some other trends that are going on right now in sports. So we'll be right back on Bookends.
What's up, everybody? It's me, Stephen Money. It's football season, and I want you to know that you can bet on me, the STN Sports App. So sign up today and get started with me, the local favorite.
Everybody, we're back on Bookends, and before we kind of jump into college basketball and football, there's some kind of cool trends that are going on in sports right now that I know you wanted to touch on, Jay.
Well, just from an NBA standpoint, obviously we're just under 15 games into the season for most teams. We've seen the Golden State Warriors jump out. I think they're 10-1 as we sit today. Absolutely
without Klay Thompson
playing fantastic basketball. Right. Washington Wizards have been a major surprise on the Eastern side of things. Even our Chicago Bulls are playing great. But it's great to see the NBA back out there. And we talked about as we sat here a year ago in the pandemic that we saw NBA scoring just going through the roof, and that NBA scoring was great, and it seemed like they weren't playing a whole lot of defense, and maybe the fans not being around was leading to higher scoring. And so what were all these things that were leading to the higher scoring in the NBA? And through this beginning portion of the season, it's absolutely flipped in that we're getting the unders. And so the stat through 167 games that we played so far, 65 overs, 102 unders. That's 61% of games are going under in the NBA.
Well, why do you think that is more? Because there is fans there, and when teams get down and momentum swings, that you actually step up your defensive game opposed to no fans?
Yeah, and I think we've got, we talked about all those things. Hey, with fans, you're just going up and down the court. The defensive intensity is not there. Maybe now the fans are back. Some of the defensive intensity is there. There's been some NBA rule changing on, foul calls and leaning in and that type of stuff. And so, whatever it is, it's changing the game a little bit. And as handicappers and bookmakers, you got to analyze these stats and think about why they're happening to be able to adjust your lines. And so right now we've not done a good job of adjusting the lines. Of course, if something's hitting at a 61%, if you're just betting that blindly and betting the under all the time, you're going to end up making money. You're going to end up cashing more tickets than you're throwing away. So something to look at there, and we'll see if we can find a little bit better balance in the NBA as we move forward.
It is really interesting the way it's flipped from last year, with and without fans, and with the rule change. But that's I really think that's a big part of it. It's just those kind of momentum swings, and you get the crowd behind you. That teams do step up their defensive intensity. And there's a pro football stat too. That's kind of
again
looking
now. For stuff that's happening at a 60% clip or more. Talking about it, if you're able to pick winners at a 60% clip, you're going to do really well and be able to put some cash in your pocket. So the NFL, again, we've talked about the last 2 weeks have been good in the NFL, and Teaser would get mad at me if I didn't bring this stat up. But underdogs against the spread are hitting at a 60% clip the last 30 days. So the last month of the season, underdogs are 33, 22, and 1, getting you that. I got to think
that's more
clip.
The last 2 weeks too, because you had that stretch in the middle of October where favorites did really well for 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and even again early, some of those underdogs they were betting the underdogs. They were betting some of those key underdogs, but the last 2 weeks with some of these, again, even from our standpoint, some of these games were just not expecting the underdog to play as well as they have, staying in these games and even winning these games. So again, Teaser loves it. We love it from a book standpoint when the underdogs are coming in, and hopefully we can continue that trend. But again, something to look at when you're doing your handicapping is understanding that these dogs are a little bit on a little bit of a hot streak.
Right, teams have been on buys too, so there's a lot of that going on kind of in the middle of the season that kind of alters some of the teams. But so we kind of touched on some stats, and I know with the beginning of the show we alluded to that college basketball started over 100 games on Tuesday. If you're a college basketball fan, and you want to really see these teams in person, Vegas is the epicenter of college basketball. We've got so many cool tournaments and events going on right now. There's so many big games involving some of the best teams in the country. Go out there and watch, but just knowing that you have this. You have the STN Sports App that you can play all these games during holiday time and honey to-do lists and everything else going on. Come in and get signed up. We'll get you signed up in a matter of minutes. We still have up to that $100 bonus going on for $50 deposits or more. It's one of those cool STN caps. But these tournaments are great. You've got the Roman with Arizona and Wichita, and UNLV in Michigan, the Maui with A&M, Butler, Oregon, just to name a few. Notre Dame,
and
Houston.
Again, we kind of, you talk about the Maui Invitational being not in Hawaii, obviously with the
weather's the same
with COVID stuff, they've moved the Maui
Right.
Invitational to Vegas, and again, you're getting some absolutely incredible teams to be able to watch coming to that.
The Continental Tire, Duke and Gonzaga. I mean, come on. I mean, you've got two of the top teams in the country, and just the story, the history of those two schools, and being able to watch them. The CBS Sports Classic with UCLA and North Carolina and Kentucky and Ohio State. There's just great games. I mean, we've only named a few. We've talked about 4 tournaments. There's probably triple that all over the valley. So if you're a college basketball fan, what a great time to be out in Vegas to be able to watch all these games. And again, I can't stress enough, it's a great time to have STN Sports.
Well, again, it's not, we were sports starved for so many years. We had no teams here. There was no Knights. There was no Raiders. We would get
there was no Knights.
We would get
Aces,
college basketball
right.
tournaments here and there. Now we're not waiting till February, March to get these tournaments. They're coming here as the preseason
right.
kind of games, and so incredible to be able to get these games. Incredible to be able to go and watch these live sports in person here in Vegas, and another team that's live and in person that we get to watch kind of the next week and a half. The Knights are on a 6-game homestand, so they packed the building again coming back against the Kraken, and we're able to get a win there. Again, some ugly offense, but they scored 2 quick goals in the third period on Tuesday night to pull out a win. But again, if you have a chance to get down to T-Mobile, they've got some great games coming up against the Wild, Carolina, who's one of the hottest teams in hockey, playing some absolutely fantastic hockey coming to town. I think Columbus, Detroit are also on. Vancouver are also on that trip. So another, whether college basketball doesn't float your boat, get down to T-Mobile and check out the Knights.
Yeah, I mean it's fun with the Knights as well. You talk about Vegas being like this sports epicenter. I mean, the NHL All-Star Game is here. The NFL Draft is here. There's so many things going on over the next 6 months in the world of sports here. It really is. It's fun to be part of it, and we were so starved to have one of those teams here, as you mentioned, Raiders, Knights, Aces. It's just really cool to be to have all this stuff going on in our backyard.
Jack Eichel made an appearance at Tuesday night's game. I got a chance to go with my son to the Kraken game, and Eichel spun the alarm at the beginning of the game.
Pretty cool.
In a very unique suit that he was wearing, but the crowd went absolutely nuts when they said that he was up there. So I think that
he won't take the ice.
He's quickly
for quite some time, but yeah.
I think when he takes the ice, he's quickly going to be a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah.
If he's able to perform on the ice, he's gonna have a lot of people that love him here in Vegas.
Yeah, I am going tonight with my son. Was there any number 9 Knights jerseys in there?
Yeah, I absolutely did.
You knew that would happen pretty quickly. All right, so now it's football time. We're going to dive into this week's pro football schedule. Tonight you have Baltimore and Miami. No Tua again. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett. Baltimore 6-2, only behind Tennessee in the AFC. They're over a touchdown favorite in this game. 77% of the tickets are on the Ravens tonight.
Yeah, and as they should be. I mean, Miami, finally able to get a win again over Houston last week, a game that they're supposed to win, but really have struggled on offense. And this has one of those feels of which Baltimore team shows up. Is it a team that's motivated and looking to play, or just looking to get through the game and get a win? But the way Lamar Jackson's playing and that running game has been going, and their defense seems to be getting better and better. This is one of those games where you just Miami's going to have to. We talk about the underdogs.
Right.
Miami's going to have to find a way. Jacoby Brissett's going to have to find a way to not turn the ball over, maybe hold the ball and get that running game going. Maybe it's Myles Gaskin or Ahmed with a lot of receptions. Baltimore, their one hole in their defense has been to tight ends. We saw Minnesota take a big lead. Obviously, that was Dalvin Cook last week that got them the lead. But they do struggle covering the tight end. We saw Uzma for Cincinnati has a big game versus
maybe
them.
Gesicki does
so
here, yeah.
Gesicki could be one of those guys that if they struggle to cover him, has a way to keep the Dolphins in this game.
The next game to me is one of the most intriguing games on the board. It's Cleveland and New England. Both teams above 500. Both teams trail, the Bills and the Titans and the Ravens in their division. I think the big part, though, is will Nick Chubb play? He's in COVID protocol. And will Damian Harris play, who's really had a really good year for New England? We saw this number drop down to 1. It's now gone back up to 2 in favor of the Patriots. New England's one of those teams that, in the offseason, they got a little bit of love on the future book. And to make the playoffs, Mac Jones is kind of settling in. That defense is playing well. They still play the Bills twice. It's going to be interesting, I think, in the AFC East, how those two teams end up. But really an interesting game for me, and 57% of the tickets are on the Browns right now. I wouldn't be surprised if that number continued to drop and they went off a small favorite, especially if Nick Chubb is announced that he's going to play. But I think it's a really good matchup.
Yeah, I think Chubb is a big deal in this game if he's able to be healthy. Again, we talked about Odell Beckham leaving, and it's almost like for the Browns it was addition by subtraction, and the team was able to focus. So
he could be on the other sideline. New England is one of the teams.
A big win, for them at Cincinnati and Mayfield. It was like a giant monkey pulled off his back, and as New England last week was beaten up on Carolina, the talk in the hub was, hey, we need to make a look. We need to take a look at this New England team in the future book and everywhere. They are putting together solid wins. They're not blowing anybody's mind out with what they're doing offensively or defense. They just keep winning.
But that
games.
was the same the same ingredient that they did even with Brady. That was kind of the case. He didn't have to throw a lot like he did there. They won with defense. They controlled the clock. He of course did what he had to do when he needed to do it. But you're right, and the fact that they play Buffalo twice, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all kind of unfolds in that division.
Yeah, if Mac Jones, again, the big thing here is Garrett coming after him, and Mac Jones has got to be able to stay on his feet and not make some bad passes. Turnovers could be the difference in this game, as most NFL games are.
Right.
This one, because of these pass rushes, could have a big deal.
And I know you and I talked about it, is that Beckham is looking at the Chiefs, the Saints, the Packers. But, going to the Chiefs, he's definitely going to be behind Hill and Kelsey. Going to the Packers, he's definitely going to be behind Adams. If he goes to the Saints, do they really have a quarterback that can get him the ball? Or is it the same kind of stuff that he went through when he was in Cleveland? Going to New England, though, which seems to be, one of the teams he's looking at, but not as high as the other three teams on his list, he becomes the guy there. I mean, you kind of saw Belichick resurrect Moss's career, Randy Moss's late. I think New England is a perfect spot for OBJ to be the guy and help Mac Jones get to the next level as far as that offensive passing game goes.
We'll see. I don't know what to think for these teams that are interested in him. I don't know. The last time we saw him really have effective seasons is back in
New York.
16, 17. It's been a long time since he's been a dynamic player, and I don't.
But is he happy in Kansas City or Green Bay when he's not the guy? And I think
he's happy if they're winning, and he's getting his stats. But I can't blame Baker Mayfield. We've seen Landry have some great games. We've seen Donovan Peoples-Jones have some great games. So those guys, he is able to get the ball to those guys and score some touchdowns. So it'll be interesting. We saw Deshaun Jackson sign with the Raiders, and we'll see if he can make a difference there. And whoever picks up Beckham, from a love of the game and loving the way the NFL works and watching these guys succeed. Hopefully he has success wherever he goes, and it elevates that team and makes them more competitive.
It's going to be interesting. I know the Packers kind of are chatter that we're
except
hearing
for the Packers.
They're the favorite right now.
I don't want them to go to the Packers and make them
any
better.
I know.
And I think that would be an odd relationship there. You talk about a superstar player going where there's another superstar player. I don't know that the Packers pull that trigger.
Well, I mean, it's similar to Tampa, though, right? They went out and got Antonio Brown when you had really good wide receivers in Godwin and Evans, and he fit in perfect there. And so we'll see. Dallas and Atlanta, another game we want to touch on. Atlanta quietly is 4-4. They sit in the last wild card spot in the NFC. Cowboys, as we mentioned earlier, first time they didn't cover or their first loss against the spread this year. Kind of funny. They've been one of the top teams in ticket counts. Now they're a huge favorite against an Atlanta Atlanta team that's playing well. Only 54% of the tickets are on the Cowboys this week. A huge drop from that high 70 to 80% of the tickets we've seen over the last month or so.
I get people remember what they saw that last, and boy, they saw Dallas just get absolutely destroyed by Denver, a team that you fully didn't expect to go out there and just whoop the Cowboys the way they did. And Atlanta's kind of done it with mirrors. You know, they've beaten some bad teams. They went and beat the Saints last week on the road, a team
that's still a good win, though.
Yeah, but again, with the whole quarterback situation and
but Saints defense is really good. We had touched on that the week before, how good that defense is. Could they do enough to win games with that offense struggling?
And Atlanta's doing this without Calvin Ridley.
I know.
Arguably one of, a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Cordell Patterson's resurrected his career in Atlanta, catching balls out of the backfield,
Kyle
working
Pitts,
as the running game. They've been doing it all, and the defense is getting some key turnovers, and they've had a great kicking game as well. So we'll see if they can continue the upset trend here. But I know Dallas is looking for a rebound again. Maybe the coming off their bye week and having Denver come to town. They just didn't have the motivation. They should be remotivated this week after the loss.
One interesting stat here. Cowboys defensive coordinator happens to be Dan Quinn, who had been the head coach of Atlanta for the last 7 years. So see how that plays out. If anybody knows Matty Ice's tendencies, it'd be Dan Quinn. Tennessee and the Saints. 77% of the tickets are on Tennessee. Number 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, you look at the last month. They finished off beating the Colts for the second time this season. They beat the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Rams. And they beat the Rams without Derrick Henry. They're really good. I mean, I love the way Grable coaches that team. They smack teams in the mouth. You've got receivers in Jones and Brown that need to step it up for Tannehill. But this could be a game that, no Kamara for New Orleans either. So 2 great running backs, 2 of the best in the league, might not be in this game. But 77% of the tickets are on the Titans. They're over a field goal favorite. And as we speak, number 1 seed in the AFC.
Well, this is the first time in quite some time that they're actually going to be the favorite. They've been doing all this as the underdog. So you talked about those all those games that they won. They were dogs in all those games and fully didn't expect them to go into Los Angeles last week with no Derrick Henry and really kind of dominate the Rams the way they did. So the Titans, in the beginning of the season, that defense looked horrendous. On the back end, they were getting thrown all over, and they've really kind of shored that up. And this is an interesting spot, I think, in this game for a team that has just played so well and really exceeded expectations in every game that they've played. Now to switch roles where they're the favorite again, and New Orleans coming off what to them was a bad loss. We'll see if they can find a way in this game.
I think a big key is Kamara, though. I know that Ingram can step in, and if they have both of those guys, I think there's some value there with the Saints. But without Kamara and not having Winston now and not having Michael Thomas, that offense is just so different than it was before.
I expect a wrinkle this week from the Saints. I don't think it's a Trevor Siemian game. I think Taysom Hill coming back from injury, he didn't get that starting nod coming back. Being healthy, they left Siemian in there. It won't surprise me at all to see a whole lot more of Taysom Hill this week as they throw a new wrinkle to see what they can do with that offense.
Last game we'll touch on in this segment is Tampa coming back from their bye against the Washington football team. The highest ticket count of any team in the league right now. 85% of the tickets are on Tampa. It's a rematch from the NFC playoff game last year where everybody kind of found out who Taylor Heineke was. He almost pulled off the upset. They did get the cover, which was good for us. You're looking at Tampa about a double-digit favorite here against Washington. Again, coming off their bye, Washington's offense has been bad, this year. Fitzpatrick isn't going to play, I don't think for at least the next couple of weeks or at all this season. And again, the highest ticket counts on the Bucs.
Well, Washington has been a team that has absolutely hurt us from a book standpoint.
Just a little.
They've been a bet against from a public standpoint, and the public cashes tickets betting against Washington. And from a sharp player and an educated player, a lot of those bets keeping Washington's point spreads down are sharp action bets on the Washington football team, and that's because they do move the football. We talk about how bad that offense is.
Kick a field goal once in a while.
They do move the football, but they really struggle in the red zone. They go for it on 4th down a lot. They don't convert, particularly ever. And then they have special team issues where they miss field goals. They have a lot of field goals blocked. We saw just their last 2 games. They really outplayed the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay, a game they could have won statistically when you look at it, and really shot themselves in the foot in the red zone. Then they went to Denver in a game that they they move the ball up and down the field on the Broncos, who we just saw then beat Dallas. But again, you don't convert the fourth downs. You get a field goal blocked. You miss a field goal, and you can't win games that way. So they go to their bye week. Maybe they figure some stuff out in their bye week. The hardest thing here is that Washington really wants to run the football. They want to get in there with Gibson and even McKissick and be able to dominate the time of possession and stuff like that. And you can't run the football on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Or you don't normally have a lot of success running the football on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You got to be able to spread the ball out and pass the football. And as much as we saw Henneke, come onto the scene last year in the playoffs, he has not been a very good quarterback this year, missing throws all over the field. He'll occasionally find a McKissick out of the backfield or McLaren for a good one down the field, but they have not been a consistently
Their defense
good at
has
moving
kept
the
them
football.
in. They just need to score more points, and that's why you
maybe
wonder why they don't
Riverboat
kick.
Ron will stop going for it on 4th and 2 at the 5 and maybe kick a field goal here. But again, field goals aren't going to get it done against this Tampa Bay offense.
Right. So we're going to come back in our last segment. We're going to touch on the primetime games and what I think is probably the best game of the week. And then we're going to get into the good and the bad, the ugly, which I know is one of our favorite segments. So we'll be right back on Bookends.
Locals, here's how easy it is to start betting on games with the STN Sports App. They have sign-up locations across Las Vegas, so no matter where you are, you're less than 5 minutes away from getting started. They have convenient withdrawal and deposit options, so you can access your money at any time, even from the comfort of home. And once you're in, you're in. You can bet on all major sports even as the action is happening with a huge in-play wagering menu. So download the STN Sports App today and get started betting with the local favorite for over 40 years.
Welcome back. We're here with our final segment of Bookends. We're going to talk about what I think is the best pro football game of the week, the 2 primetime games, and then our favorite segment, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to get right into it. Packers-Seahawks. Russell Wilson's back. We're not sure about Aaron Rodgers. The number has dropped 2 full points. These teams have played historic games over the last 5 years that have come down to miracle passes and crazy finishes. Only 52% of the tickets, Jay, are on Green Bay. I'm wondering if it flips to Seattle or not. It's a big game for both these teams. But, hey, a lot depends on what's ultimately going to happen with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and again, the Russell Wilson story that he's back is going to get people back onto the Seahawks. And I think if you're a Packer backer, you're waiting to get that official confirmation that Rodgers has passed his COVID protocols and got those 2 negative tests. He should be available come Saturday. On Saturday, we're going to know whether he's going to play or not. Obviously, he hasn't practiced this whole last 2 weeks.
Wilson would be a little bit rusty, too.
Yeah.
Although they come off the bye. He did practice a little bit.
And they said he's looked great in practice. And I just saw some interesting conversation around this game with Devontae Adams missing last week at Arizona. Or 2 weeks ago against Arizona, and then he played against Kansas City this week. He talked about being a little bit out of game shape. That you figure these guys are 8-9 games into the season, getting a bye week or having a week off kind of gives them the refresher. But Devontae Adams, said that he was a little bit winded here and there.
You can't practice when that's the case.
So you wonder, if Rodgers does come back, and again, quarterback much different from a all-out activity standpoint than what Devontae Adams running down the field constantly. But how does Rodgers come back? This and the same thing with Russell Wilson. How does he come back after all these weeks off at a game pace? So maybe something to look at from a total standpoint here of maybe these two teams try to slow it down a little bit or something.
Don't forget in Seattle's case, they're just 1 and I think they're 1-6 or 1-7 against the number as far as all unders. So they haven't scored a lot of points this year. So maybe that does.
And when I look at the Packers, the other thing is we talked about Aaron Jones being that one of the top running backs in the league and what they've done, but really it's the resurgence of A.J. Dillon, a young man out of Boston College from 2 years ago, really almost becoming a two-headed backfield with the amount of reps that these guys are getting. Jones seems to catch a lot more passes out of the backfield, and they're using Dillon much more as that power back. So doesn't put as much pressure on Aaron Rodgers and have to sling that ball around when you've got a good running game like that. And Seattle has had trouble stopping the run, so this might be a game where we see a little bit more of Jones and Dillon.
Right. I think, too, for me, it was the entire soap opera that surrounded the Packers and Rodgers going into the season. And what ultimately happened, they played so bad week 1. They got beat. Now you're kind of looking at the same thing. A lot of undue media attention that's not necessarily about football. It's about Rodgers and not being vaccinated. He's been away from the team. He has to come back here. Maybe that's a reason, too, that we've seen this number drop 2 points.
Yeah, drop. You know what? Aaron Rodgers seems to love when you underestimate Aaron Rodgers, or when you think the Packers are in trouble or things aren't going their way. That's when Aaron Rodgers likes to tell you that he owns you and has an absolutely fantastic game. And so they've been on the road. They beat Arizona. They went and lost to Kansas City. But the one thing that I think they developed in these last two games without Adams and then without Rodgers is their defense is really starting to play
Defense has played well.
a lot better football.
Right.
So if they can continue to play good on that defensive side of the ball, and unfortunately we all know what Aaron Rodgers is capable of, and when Aaron Rodgers puts his mind to it and has a great game, the other team is in some big trouble.
Yep, it could be. Sunday Night Football in our backyard at Allegiant. Chiefs at the Raiders. Chiefs are a small favorite here. Very uncharacteristic to what we've seen this year. 55% of the tickets are on the Chiefs. I think the Raiders have gotten more tickets every week except one when we did the show was against Denver. That was the week that Gruden resigned, but by the time that game kicked, it was in favor of the Raiders. So it's 55%. These two teams, last year the Raiders could have won both games. I think 75 points were scored in one game, 68 points were scored in the other. The total in this game, I think, is 52.5 right now. Chiefs are a small favorite here. This could go a long way to winning the AFC West, whoever wins this game.
Yeah, again, the Chiefs have not been who we've expected over the last several weeks. Barely squeaking by the Giants, barely beating the Green Bay Packers without Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't seem like that offense is clicking on all cylinders. It's still Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill, and kind of when you watch them on the field,
run, though.
But they look dynamic. They still look like the Chiefs. They just haven't been able to put points on the board. And this is a Raider team that, again, we talked about. They were the better team last week in New York. They moved the ball up and down the field. They had some bad penalties, some bad turnovers. Obviously, the interception return for a touchdown for the Giants went a long way in determining that game. But again, getting to that atmosphere in Allegiant Stadium and getting this Las Vegas fan base, this is still a game that I think the Raiders can win. I think that you're going to see that ticket count reverse by the time we get to game time. I think you're going to see
Do you think
a lot
the
of Raider
number
money.
gets pushed up to 3?
No, I think we're going to continue to see it come down. I think we're going to see so much public Raider money. And again, the off-field challenges that the Raiders continue to have to face. And we did see a pickup of Deshaun Jackson.
Right.
We'll see if he makes his way to the field this week to kind of take that Ruggs role of that deep threat. But again, this Raider team has so much on their shoulders, and a Kansas City team that, again, I don't think they're afraid of. That they've been in games with this team. They know how to play this team. They've just got to stop the silly penalties and the bad turnovers.
Well, it's their second home primetime game this year. Week 1, they beat the Ravens in that crazy finish, and now they get their division rivals or arch enemies, the Chiefs on